Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Propagandacast with me, host Imperial Dane. On 1 vs. 1 awaits you on Semoisky. Yes, indeed, Semoisky. We're quickly back here for what shall turn out to be a riveting and exciting, a wondrous episode between Stephenn of the Soviet Union of the 4th Guards Tank Corps going up against Draupner of the Wehrmacht's 2nd Panzer Division. A brutal fight shall be enveloping right here on Semoisky between these two forces. It shall be a good fight, it shall be an exciting fight, it shall be a fight with spearhead, Jaeger armor and fortified armor doctrine, in fact, so rather armored player here, but with an emphasis on elephants being available. This man looks to like the heavy tank destroyers, the schwere Panzerjäger. Opposing him with Stephenn's doctrines, we will be noticing mechanized support, terror tactics, and shock rifle front lines are less of the original doctrines, more of the ones that can be gained through purchasing. Some of the more new ones. Interesting. And there seems to be an emphasis on shock troopers amongst other things. So that should really prove to be interesting. But back to Draupner. One pioneer squad heading down there, and we are noting a very heavy machine gun start here from Draupner. Plenty of Schweres MG 42, rather interesting. Looks like he might be trying to lock down some areas, whereas we are seeing Stephenn with plenty of infantry. My apologies. Anyways, points are being secured. Stephenn very aggressively heading towards the center. Only light movement towards the west and the north, whereas we are seeing some more broader strokes going on here from Draupner. In fact, rushing his MG-42s ahead to structures, bit bold play. He could risk actually getting hit here by an infantry squad, in which case he might be in a bit of trouble. And certainly that would be one of his initial problems early on. That is, in fact, his army will not be very maneuverable. It will be all about trying to secure the right points and holding them, and hope to God the opponent doesn't hit you with anything even remotely tricky. In this case, for example, if Stephenn had rushed for a scout covers and flame from this, that could really have been a bad day for Draupner. Another squad of conscripts. Initial engagement up here. Pioneers versus communists. Also looks like Stephenn already here trying to wire off this area. Not unusual to see that on Semois, and thus obviously not on Semoisky. Just less fast. But already, I mean, Stephenn's already gained more map and ground, and basically that's always going to be one of the problems with us in MG-42 start. It's not really meant towards actually taking territory, at least not without exposing yourself in a horrible, dreadful manner. And already here we are seeing a pretty aggressive move. MG-42 being held back by a single conscript in a building. That's definitely not going to be a fun engagement for the MG. Grenadiers are going to be moving up. In the meanwhile, the Pioneers should have rushed the combat engineers. That was actually a bit of a mistake there from Draupner. Pioneers really would have won this if they'd rushed up through the cover. Instead, this would be to the advantage of Stephenn. Grenadiers moving up there, taking up position in a small square. In the meanwhile, conscript squad taking a longer, broader approach up in the north. Two Grenadier squads now out for Draupner, finally getting some infantry, finally getting something that can push a bit more seriously. Stephenn continuing to wire off this area to sort of minimize the amount of points his opponent can come from, or at least increase the effort to make a penetration through that area. And there we go, Northern MG-42 spotted by a conscript squad, going to be nicely flanked there. Going to probably make a rush for the house, perhaps back, or perhaps something else. Dealing here with the conscripts at the house with two Grenadier squads, and there we go. No, he actually ends up retreating, and of course that is the danger of sending out an MG-42 that far. I mean, if it gets caught off guard, and that's going to be very easy, then I mean you're in trouble. That's always something you have to be mindful of in those situations. Conscripts here running out the back door, going to possibly pull back for another position or just conduct a real full retreat. But already here we see that Stephenn is gaining most of the map, and he's been able to rather nicely contain Draupner. And again, that's the problem when you go for this sort of a heavy machine gun start. You do limit the potential amount of territory you can take within the first few minutes. In particular, I mean, you get up against a good Soviet aggressive player like Stephenn, who just pretty much rises up and immediately confronts his opponents. Secondly, we're going to see a quick follow-up here with a support weapon Campania from Stephenn of Australia. Things quieten down just a wee bit, breaking out finally again. Points are being secured, and a third heavy machine gun. Draupner here playing a very, very dug-in game. It seems like very static. Looks like he's very intent on the delaying gameplay, which would also thus indicate he's likely going to be skipping tier 2 and heading straight on to tier 3. Or if he's really bold, dash, insane, possibly both, he might even go for a tier 4, but that seems a lot less bloody likely. So there goes securing the fuel point, but we are seeing a few conscripts here ready to ambush through the building. Dispersing troops left and right now. It seems like combating these with flamethrowers. Medic upgrades up for Stephenn as well, and our mortar out. Now, of course, there's going to be plenty of machine guns and probably lots of machine guns in buildings. The mortar is, of course, going to be quite an excellent choice. And for Semoisky, I mean, this position is really great for just having a mortar cover most of the village. Rushing for both fuel points, having the MG42 cover that spot again. Grenadiers here not doing so well against the conscripts, but at least they managed to take the point, but they are going to be forced away. No upgrades as of yet for any of the conscripts, and we're also noting a mortar now, so very, very heavy support approach here for Draupner. Barely any infantry, but lots of support weapons, lots of machine guns, and a mortar. Rushing from house to house. Bit of a dangerous situation though, mortar creeping up the road. And there we go, the flamethrowers immediately force the grenadiers to pull back, and Draupner will have to retreat them. They are in a terrible, a deplorable condition even. Come on, Draupner. Rückzug! Save that last man! And this building is simply getting pelted like a shooting gallery. And there we go, mortar rounds are flying in from both sides now. And probably about the same time, so both of them are suddenly aware that, the other guy also has a mortar. And all of a sudden, things became a lot less safe for either side in the centre. Conscripts advancing through the cemetery all of a sudden find themselves risked at being interred. And Grenadier Squad took a nice direct hit right there. No taking up as of yet. In fact, a bit of resources being floated by Draupner. Flamethrower moving up to deal with the MG42 in the church. And conscripts on the move there to deal with the mortar most likely. But we are seeing that Stephenn is being forced to pull back a bit. And we're also noting his shock trooper, meaning either shock rifle or terror tactics from Stephenn, or was it anti-infantry? Audi Grenadier Squad caught straight between the shock troopers and the submachine guns. But no, looks like he was able to survive, managed to run past it all. Mortar crew moved up a bit too close, caught by the shock troopers and the PPS H-41s, ended on the spot. Conscripts going to hit in the flank. Grenadiers getting a third squad again, a very heavy tier 1. I mean, this is one of the heaviest tier 1s I've seen in quite some time. 3 Grenadier squads, 3 MGs and a mortar, and there we go. Smoke at the front of the church to ensure the MG42 can't fire the shock troop, allowing him to move up with a grenade. Well played there by Stephenn. Well played. Good usage of smoke grenades and the shock troopers overall. Although we do see another MG42 actually flanking 3 MG42s in the town. Absolutely insane amount of firepower, and ultimately though the smoke couldn't quite cover right this approach, but still bloody well done. But at the same time, of course, we also now see this entire area has been left open. Ultimately, in the victory point, and the munitions still have been secured there by Draupner. We really should look into doing that. But a rather brutal engagement. MG42s, I think, going to have to move forward pretty quickly, and this mortar should also be recruited. Stephenn, on the other hand, moving on quickly to the mechanized armor company. I'm probably worried about armor. He's seen all of this, and of course he knows this likely means an armored rush, in which case, of course, Stephenn doesn't want to dally about here in the support weapon company. He wants something that can deal with the sudden onslaught of fascist panzers. So obviously Stephenn reading the situation in his manner, and likely it's going to be the correct reading Although so far, I mean, he's still stuck in tier 2 in terms of research, but he's still not built anything. And again, he's got so much here otherwise.
What do you need?
And there we go, MG42 caught outside here by conscripts caught in the building. Shock troops moving up, Grenadiers in a bit of trouble here. There might be a nice grenade through the window as a prize from the Soviet army, and there we go. Fritz and Reinhardt bit the dust. And there we go, the Grenadiers immediately find themselves forced to retreat. MG42 makes a run into the house, while shock troops get into the nearby structure as well. So a bit of a close range duel here with submachine guns and heavy machine guns. And there we go, third tier research for Draupner. Time to pop over to Stephenn. Mortar rounds falling down here, the MG42 crew in the house. Lots of weaving about between the forces. Stephenn pulling back his mortar a bit, and we're noting the first unit out of the support weapon company is in fact a Katyusha, which looks like he's not that worried, at least initially, about enemy armor. Instead, he's going to go for the rockets, the Stalin organ, as is known by the Germans. Which obviously says something about Stalin's taste in music. Grenadiers equipped with a light machine gun, wondrous, wondrous. In fact, several Grenadiers now finally upgraded with light machine guns, although I think he could have done that earlier to increase his firepower against the Soviet infantry. Shock troopers continue to hold on inside the building in their camouflage uniforms and body armor. Although technically troops that would have been equipped like that would have been assault engineers, more specifically. Oh, grenade managed to collapse the wall, forcing the entire building to collapse. Wiping out the Grenadiers caught leaning behind an LMG. Nasty there, very nasty for Draupner. And this Grenadiers Corps might also want to consider vacating those premises before they find their lodgings also becoming a tomb. And there we go. Unleashing rockets. Oh, another building collapsed. A church collapsed with an MG42 in it. Very bad news, very bad news. Support armor up there for the 2nd Panzer Division. Troops reinforcing. Field guns being made as well. Looks like Stevens not realizes he hasn't the fuel, so of course he goes for the field gun instead. And Panzerkampfwagen has arrived. Pioneers forced to retreat. Sensors being held, but very lightly. Also interesting to note, of course, there was absolutely no mines laid down at all, I think, by either side. No TM-35s or Teleporters mines. Bit of a shame that. Would certainly make it harder for either player to make any kind of advance. And now the conscripts find themselves a bit pressured here as the Panzerkampfwagen moves up with its high explosive shells. And of course all of its machine guns. MG42 will quickly need to vacate there before the Katyusha has a chance of collapsing the entire thing on it. But looks like Draupner there got a bit lucky.
What do you want? Ready. Mortar here.
Going there for the victory point there, cutting off resources well for Stephenn. Finally making some progress up there, finally. It looks like the Panzer IV is acting as the forefront there. And these Grenadiers might want to consider vacating. Then again, apparently not, since Stephenn hasn't upgraded with Molotovs, interestingly enough. Might have figured that. Apparently I was wrong. And there we go, mining up. Good job, Stephenn, good job. Panzer IV moving in and straight into the line of fire of the SIS-3. And there we go, Panzer IV actually flanking, not much to cover the field gun. And nope, looks like the Panzer IV doesn't quite care about that. Also noting here, we actually see ambush up, hiding the field gun from the view of Draupner's Panzer IV. Sneaky work there, sneaky work. A second Panzer IV though arrives in the meanwhile, some more armor is being added.
AT gun ready.
And this Grenadier escorting is a pretty terrible condition. We'll want reinforcements quite soon. And this Panzer IV obviously needs some repairs, but once more we do see that Stephenn has been contained. But a vicious counterattack from Draupner was able to throw him back, and certainly the appearance of 2 Panzer IVs is probably giving Stephenn a bit of a headache. But Stephenn reacts quickly and with more field guns.
Ready.
Our territory is falling into enemy hands. Anti-tank gun is ready for action.
Another Panzer IV on the roll.
We are taking fire. Do not give an inch.
Shock troops finding themselves engaged. Katyusha 5 versus the MD-42 in the centre. Stephenn looks to be setting up for an assault there, and of course there's the LMG which he might notice and pick up. Or not. Oh, less than good maneuvering there with Draupner again. He's sending out his MD-42s a bit too aggressively sometimes, and obviously getting the caught out in the open and thus run off.
Engineers ready.
But shock rifle doctrine has been chosen for Stephenn here.
Combat engineers.
All a bit quiet again, all a bit quiet.
Red Army at your service.
Bunker up, likely a medic bunker, and not really much else choice to get in the base.
The people and workers of the Soviet Union.
It looks like Stephenn is getting a bit more aggressive with the mines.
You need something demolished?
Lots of rockets.
It is finished.
And a small push here towards the north.
Good work, comrades.
Very aggressive play, going to keep some pressure on Stephenn mentally.
Yes, comrades.
And Stephenn on the other hand working hard to gain back some territory.
To capture our territory.
And noting the field gun is set to cover up the first one in case this one gets flanked. Obviously such will be the appearance. It looks like Draupner's making a rush for his opponent's base. He's also getting a 3rd Panzer IV. Of course, if he clears out this heavy machine gun, he could very much open up for a direct path into Stephenn's space with the infantry, which could actually be quite unpleasant. And looks like a reconnaissance aircraft coming in there. Getting a bit too close with his tank. What are you doing straight in the enemy's base, man? Looks like he's turning into a base raid, but he's not really doing it very considerately. He's very much setting up his Panzer IV for getting blown to bits. And there we go, anti-tank grenade went off. He did get a conscript squad, but now his Panzer IV is damaged with an engine inside his opponent's base. And there we go, field gun to the right, and they're going to deal with it. That really was not very elegantly handled by Draupner. In fact, it was pretty daft.
Watch out for that tank.
Mortar crew retreating frightened from. Oh, mortar crew wiped out. A minor victory right there for Draupner. In particular, since it was veterancy too, but still, will it be worth a Panzer IV? In particular, if that Panzer IV gets abandoned within his opponent's base, which is currently very much a threat. Su-85 arriving. And there we go, Panzer IV hitting a mine. If the field gun here was to move up, it could get off a good shot as well. Possibly knock out the other Panzer IV, because this one is obviously doomed. If the field gun can apparently hit it.
Our headquarters is taking enemy fire.
And there we go, recruiting mortar. Nicely done there by Stephenn. Destroyed engine veterancy 1 on the Panzer IV, but sadly it will avail it nothing. And there we go, Panzer IV cooked off. Looks like he actually tried to pop smoke And we see reconnaissance and smoke, which either means he's gone spearhead or fortified armor. Popping over to Draupner, who has gone for fortified armor. Bit rare to see that doctrine. Let's see how it gets utilized. Another house collapses. 3 grenadier escorts with 1 MG42 is lost. Mortar lost again. And 2 Panzer IVs and 2 Pioneer escorts. Still managing to keep Stephenn contained. The question is for how long with the losses he's suffering. And now with the appearance of an SU-85 tank destroyer. There we go. Panzer IV here needs to be a bit careful. He's within range of the SU-85 and of course the field gun also nearby. Might be an idiot just to pop smoke and get the devil out of there. But no real attempt here from Draupner in fortifying this area. No mines at the crossroads or minor paths with S or telemines. Also knowing now the command panzer is available, he could consider that, since it would make it harder when in friendly territory to knock out any of his units, because they will receive less damage. But there we go, Panzer IV damaged. Not sure what happened here, why it chose to take this path and why it didn't pop smoke. So a bit of a shame there, bit of a shame, bit of a silly loss. Still he's got 1 Panzer IV left. On the other hand, most of his infantry's been beaten up and is nowhere near the front. And there we go, nice usage of the smoke grenade to come out against the MG42. Though in this case there is still line of sight due to the point, which rather means the MG42 can still fire at it. Negotiation 5 moving ahead. Panzer IV needs to be careful, he needs to flank or something. It certainly should not be trying to slug it out with the SU-85. But there we go, pulling up, popping smoke. Good use of Panzer there.
You need something built or blown up? Grenadiers reporting.
Could it be he's saving up for the Elephant tank destroyer? Could certainly be. But no, come on, Panzer.
We are losing a sector.
Stephenn going in pretty aggressively as well, trying of course to draw away Draupner's forces from the front line. Good move. And there we go, also harassing up here. Well done, as many as different points as possible. That is good harassment. And of course constant artillery barrages. Although in this case not really achieving much except giving some poor bastard a headache. But good to see every Grenadier squad upgrade. Looks like we are going to see a move back to the lighter mechanized company for Draupner. Panzer IV getting repaired. Stephenn slowly advancing. And there we go, conscript squad equipped with a light machine gun and veteran G2, meaning they'll be getting a bit more out of that light machine gun than they otherwise would have.
We have liberated this sector. We are losing a sector.
Getting Panzer Grenadiers now. Looks like Draupner is ready to go a bit more on the offensive.
Taking our territory. They're coming from behind. The bastards are shooting at us.
Lots of machine gun fire going on in different parts of the map.
Awaiting orders.
And all of it German machine gun fire, even if being helped by the Russians. Grenades flying through there, and there we go, conscript squad retreat, although we did see poor Heinz light a blaze. MG42 going to set up, but it might not be fast enough as the shock troopers are moving in. And there we go, smoke, but a bit too late in this case, a bit too late. Not quite quick enough there on the trigger, Stephenn. Conscripts moving from the north.
We have taken it.
Continuing to mine the flanks, good, although you might want to set the mortar up, and also might want to advance there, keep up the pressure on Draupner, make it harder for him to think clearly. Careful with the Panzer IV up there. Unless of course he manages to flank all of this, which is slightly possible. Grenadiers flanking out, and there goes squad of Panzer Grenadiers ready. He could have considered upgrading with a Panzer Schreck to help deal with the S-85. Or not bother. Field gun getting outmaneuvered, combines his side with a minesweeper. I mean, Stephenn's more worried about his opponent's mines, which so far have not been used, than his opponent, that is Draupner, is worried about Stephenn's mines, despite Stephenn regularly using them. That's a bit silly. On Draupner, that is.
Our brave infantry is dying.
And says also a bit about the difference in skill. Grenadier going off here. Grenadier squad, though, did not lose a man. All of the other one did. Two Grenadier squad with shock troops up close, but this is too close. The shock troops might in fact get the squad. But no, getting just around the corner. The shock troopers can't get to them. And this Panzer IV taking some damage, quickly popping some smoke and pulling back, realizing this is going to be a fruitless endeavor. And a second Katyusha up for Stephenn. Looks like Stephenn is fond of his rocket artillery. I do believe it's time for the mid-game analysis. So, what is the current situation? Draupner is holding most of the map. That's for sure. On the other hand, he's having a few problems due to Stephenn's increasing presence, the way that Stephenn is constantly harassing, and of course the H-85s and the Katyusha providing some rather long-range firepower, which is rather taking a serious toll on Draupner's infantry, and of course his armour. And like many German players, he seems to love Panzer IVs, yet seems to have some trouble actually utilising them at times. And he's not really so far putting that much usage out of his doctrine either. He's clearly setting up for the elephant in the hopes that will provide final victory. But at the same time, he's like, I'm not using the command Panzer IV, which of course can be quite handy against infantry, but also just in supporting the rest of his armour, and for that matter his infantry as well, since the bonus it provides is not just for armour but also infantry. And I mean, there's no hold on, although hold down, yeah. I mean, for the Panzer IV to work against the H-85s, you need to place it at certain angles. For example, right around here, where the H-85s would not be able to get in their range advantage. Something like that. So obviously, I mean, it's limited in usage. Hopefully, Relics works a bit on that eventually. Although again, Draupner's holding much, but at the same time, he's also spreading out his forces awfully much, which is also giving Stephenn some good chances of basically striking away at the lone units here and there. For Draupner, though, he should focus up something. He should try and shore up the lines. He shouldn't mine. I mean, he's got so much munitions, yet he's not laying down any mines, which would really help him out, but also protect against Stephenn's harassment. Or for that matter, just placing down a machine gun bunker right here could also prove advantageous. He should also really eventually consider getting a command tank out to help with his troops and armor, and he might also consider a small raid here against the Katyushas if possible. Rushing in a Panzer IV somehow and getting at them, or perhaps a Stug right around here could also do the trick. And it might not also be a bad idea to use some reconnaissance overflights to keep track of what Stephenn is doing on the map. For Stephenn, of course, I mean, he needs to break out. He's still being contained. I mean, and while he's doing a lot of damage, ultimately, if he doesn't break out, if he doesn't get back some resources, I mean, it's not going to look good. And so far, I mean, a push here would be certainly the best one, since that's currently where Draupner is weakest. But also open up for a small path here to continue harassment otherwise, and, you know, just keep pushing, keep mining. Considering the doctrine he has, he could consider getting out an IS-2, perhaps a KV-8. Either would work out nicely. And I also think he might want to consider just continuing pressuring over here, but also providing perhaps an additional Su-85, or perhaps some Su-76s, to provide a bit of extra either artillery support or just something to piss off the Panzer IV. Just some thoughts there, and of course more mines. But otherwise, I mean, Stephenn's doing an alright job. It's just more the problem of, you know, holding the ground at the moment, though that might not be Stephenn's objective as such. But let us return to the fight, to the engagement.
Ready.
Panzer IV pulling back.
Attempting to steal our sector.
Also, Stephenn is obviously playing a bit cautiously with the H-85. This one needs recruiting, and there we go, Elephant ready from reserve from the Schwere Panzerjägerabteilung.
Securing our territory.
Of course, note, focus sight does make you move slower. And the Panzergrenadiers have been equipped with the Raketenpanzerbüchse. And there we go. Draupner going over into very blowing up armor mode. With the lumbering beast, the Elephant. Which was certainly one of the heaviest tank destroyers on the Eastern Front, since the Jagdpanther really didn't fight on the Eastern Front until February 1945. Most of the action it did see was on the Western Front against the Americans and the British. And was also a much better tank destroyer, since it was also considerably more nimble. Yet still had decent armor. Conscripts. Oh, nice use of the smoke. Again, Stephenn really consistently laying down smoke grenades wherever needed. Artillery following up. Panzer, of course, going to have to react. Elephant as well. Though, of course, there is the H-85 to consider. And already the Panzer IV is coming under fire. There we go, 85 mm gun. Blasting away merrily. And quickly popping some smoke, although at the same time this does make it a bit difficult for the Elephant to see anything. Although again, reconnaissance, overflight, I mean, it's an ability that rather does seem to really just mingle well with the Elephant heavy tank destroyer, but it just seems like not a lot of people actually combine the two. Which is definitely a shame. At the same time, Comedy is leading a flank. Again, mines move up from Stephenn. Stephenn taking no chances with mines. Whereas the Draupner just doesn't really seem to care. Which is a bit of a shame. There we go, more mines going down. I mean, really aggressive mine laying from Stephenn. I mean, this is... He hasn't even taken the territories, of course, in that sense it actually offers up a blind spot into his opponent's ideas. Because most people don't expect their own territory, if it has been taken, to be mined. So in that sense, very devious from Stephenn, very devious. Shock troops continue on. Veterans 20 kills. Really a nasty bunch of bastards. 2 squads of Panzers with Panzer VI. Rockets blowing out. Oh my goodness. Looks like a Panzer squad did go down. At the same time, the shock troopers were wiped out. Looks like the Katyushas killed their own men. I'm sure Stephenn hadn't anticipated that, though. Veterans lead the conscript squad up at the front. Elephant slowly lurching forwards, firing at the wrong target. The Elephant pretty much only good for shooting up tanks, and even then it can be a bit questionable. Maximum up for Stephenn now. Actually enough to come the right victory point. Good job there. And then again, note, even as the attack goes on there, he's also harassing, taking away territory elsewhere. My apologies. And again, just aggressively mining. Wondrously so. In this case, he's just doing it right in front of the enemy because he doesn't even care at this stage, it seems like. There we go, nice all-around assault going on here against Draupner. Draupner simply having trouble holding it all back. And of course, a ton of rockets going in the direction of Draupner as well. Costing him another squad of Panzergrenadiers. The question is, of course, what will Draupner do now? We're popping over to Stephenn, who replenishes the lost shock trooper squads with a fresh one. And of course, Draupner counterattack initially going towards the west to regain that at the very least. Though also leading a small attempt here to cut off Stephenn from his resources. Certainly diverse fighting left and right. Conscripts versus Grenadiers. Panzers versus tank destroyers and other fun things. Elephant rolling up. Interesting enough, there's no increased line of sight on this one being utilised at all. Though I do believe that is not suffering from the same Elephant that the H-85 penalty that HQ5 has, so he could actually increase the line of sight on it. MG42 crew went down. Oh! But the Katyusha made the mistake, and the Elephant quickly spotted it, fire off one armor-piercing 88mm shell, and there we go, the Katyusha blew up. And immediately Stephenn bolts back the other one, realizing what happened if it peeks its head out a bit too far.
Fire incoming! Enemy contact! Yes, comrade!
But Draupner continues to lose ground as Stephenn tightens the noose. And certainly Draupner will need to quickly crew that MG42, otherwise it might be handed over to Stephenn in a brutal move, which was going to make it harder for Draupner's troops to move about.
How can we help?
Ooh, looks like Stephenn finally got some Molotovs. Also looks like Stephenn's conscripts ran into a bit of trouble, more than they anticipated. Field gun moving up. Nice hit there on the rear of the Elephant, gaining the field gun veterancy free in the process.
Yes, comrade.
Maxon set up to cover there. And clearly won't have to worry about anything, since Draupner seems more and more concerned with the centre, ignoring the flanks, and any attempt at flanking his opponent.
Enemy forces capturing supply sector.
And there we go, a bit of air reconnaissance finally going in again. Alton Stevens not recruit that weapon. I would have thought he would have done that, but apparently not. How odd.
We are here to die, comrade.
And Panzer IV needs to get out of there before that veterancy free field gun fires another shot. Pop smoke. Ooh, that was bloody well close. That could have been game over for the Panzerkampfwagen 4.
Line lines have been cut. Assault gun ready for
SU-85 rolling up. Elephant needs to quickly turn.
taking what we have secured.
And that SU-85 is very close to veterancy 2. And the Elephant missed. Seems to happen rather awfully much.
We've taken the territory.
And these veterancy 3 conscripts might once consider getting out there, at least getting merged with another squad. But Draupner is getting back into the field, into the fight.
Your predecessor died.
And is currently holding on to most of the victory points, that way increasing some pressure on Stephenn.
Enemy
And Stephenn is slowly getting his way to actually being able to call in an IS-2 if that is what he wants.
We are ready for anything.
AT gun ready. They've opened up on us. Ready. We killed an enemy squad.
Ooh, he got the MG42, but the last grenadier went down, so that was a squad gone right there. And immediately we see the field gun here saying about bombarding the MG42 crew.
You have it on enemy contact.
And a fresh barrage. Things seem to get a bit more and more caught up in the centre. Even Stephenn seemingly not quite acknowledging the flanks anymore.
They see us. You need
And that mortar seems to have moved up awfully close to the front line.
up on us.
Awfully close. No, instead we get actually a KV-8 heavy flamethrower tank.
I am getting tired of this shit.
Okay, that's the last one.
And looks like a smaller force moving in from the north. Conscript shock troopers. H-85. There we go. Very close. And actually note that he popped smoke to give the H-85 cover so the elephant doesn't immediately target it. But the elephant is not doing anything. And there we go. Veteran 2. The elephant's already down to half health. He's actually moving it closer. Grenadiers are going to try and flank. Might get off a Panzerfaust, but the elephant just needs to get off a shot. There we go. And the elephant misses. The elephant misses. No, the army actually insisted on moving it closer when the elephant has the range it has. He could have just called in a reconnaissance aircraft on the spot and just kept the elephant in range instead. He might just have doomed his elephant tank destroyer. There we go. And the elephant actually failed to penetrate the H-85. And there we go, another bit of smoke, but the shock troops actually provide line of sight, ensuring this is actually only a one-way area for the Germans. Ostwind has arrived, and where's the Panzer IV? Why isn't it flanking it with the Blitzkrieg? Come on, Draupner. Flank, man. And too late. That really should have happened much faster. That was a bit of a poor armoured engagement there from Draupner, I feel like. Had he rushed in the Panzer IV with Blitzkrieg, I'm pretty sure the S-35 would have been down and the elephant would still have also been there. In the meanwhile, KV-8 rolling in at the same time. S-35 causing dire trouble. Veteran 2 with the Panzer IV making it harder to deal with for the enemy's armour. And I also think, you know, had he gone for the Panzer IV command tank, that might also live to a higher chance of survival for the elephant instead of the Ostwind. Both of them are pretty good against infantry. The command tank just also provides a defensive bonus. So I can't help but feel here that Draupner made a series of critical mistakes in judgment of the situation. And there you go, popping smoke. S-85 went down. A bit of a tragic loss there for Stephenn, but the Panzer IV rolls in and ready to take on the next target. Quickly sending the KV-8 scurrying for safety. Except it's blocking the line of fire of the field gun. Stephenn, though, clearly having the larger force. But then that's what's expected of the Soviets. Soviets in general have larger forces. The Germans on the other hand have smaller, but on the other hand they're also able to do more damage. KV-8 pretty much on the hunt there for the Ostwind with the damage engine. The Panzer IV needs to quickly move in. Blitzkrieg, Blitzkrieg. Come on, Draupner. KV-8 down to half health, but it is relentless. And looks like it will be able to get the Ostwind. And there we go. Tragically so for Draupner. And the 2nd Panzer Division back to him. Come on, Befehlspanzermann. MG42 left to fend for itself. Another light machine gun left behind. Barely an infantry left for that matter. Seems like things are falling apart here for Draupner. And looks like the KV-8 might be able to escape even. Field gun's turning about. Don't stop up, don't stop up. Why are you stopping up, Draupner? That did not really seem very well considered. There we go, smoke. Saving the day. Although that seems to be the only day that's being saved. That crew for now. Stephenn continuing and pushing. Stephenn holding most of the map. Stephenn dominating. Just lots and lots of rockets. Bit of interdiction artillery right here. Usual spot to see the enemy move on Semoisky, or Semoisky for that matter. Of course, a good spot to hit with artillery. You're very likely to hit something either moving out or retreating. Grenadiers with a Panzerfaust, but they are getting hit with a KV-8 and burned alive. KV-8 though is pretty close to destruction. And I get the feeling that Draupner might be trying with another elephant tank destroyer. I don't really feel it's going to avail him much. Oh, Panzerfaust failed to actually penetrate the frontal armor. What a shame. What a shame. And another Grenadier squad sent to the Reich beyond. Still holding on to 3 heavy machine guns for some indeterminable reason. And a veterancy free MG42, that's actually pretty rare to see, but also something pretty nasty. But the Panzerfaust's ready to move out again, getting close to veterancy free. Ooh, that was a punishing grenade. Entire MG42 crew got wiped out by those bastards.
Enemy forces are securing our territory.
Considering there's no further armor coming up for Stephenn, he might be actually going now for an IS-2. Shock troopers run off. Usually shock troopers, by the way, were detached in smaller independent battalions and basically placed where they were needed. Usually as part of shock armies, but could also be in other units. And now he's spamming Ostwinds, but yet refuses to get even a single command Panzer IV. Why on earth? What does he have against it? I mean, why go fortified armor if you're not going to use the command Panzer IV? That's like going assault support as joint strike or whatever it's called, joint operations. They're not going for the officer. A bit pointless, and rather missing a good point. But there you go, veterans with free field gun up. KV-8 moving in. Panzer IV going to take hits. Combat Pioneer squad wiped out, but so the conscripts nearby. Good use of smoke there. At least he's on the top with that, which is something. And another Grenadier squad wiped out. The KV-8, a lumbering dragon from a different era, and certainly not the sort of thing you want to encounter if you're an infantryman. Quickly pulling the KV-8 out of harm's way from the Panzer IV, protecting the frontal armor. Ostwind here flanking about, but taking severe damage from that veterancy free field gun. I mean, it really is nasty. And actually using ambush tactics. Overall, Stephenn actually using pretty much most of his doctrine. And there we go, Ostwind abandoned. Ostwind abandoned. Points are ticking down for Draupner. More smoke popping. And finally some blitzkrieg Ostwind moving up. But right in front of the veterancy free field gun, so that's not going to be a happy ending. And there we go, veterancy free Panzer IV. But a damaged engine at the same time. But there we go. H-85 down, 26 kills on the Panzer IV on the vehicle kill. And looks like the KV-8 might be the next victim. But otherwise things are barely holding together for Draupner. He's got 2 veterancy free units, but one of them is likely going to go down in a few minutes as that veterancy free field gunner has sighted it. KV out, KV down, but Blitzkrieg and smoke. Blitzkrieg and smoke. Nebeln. No. And there we go. And there we go as well, the IS-2. The Joseph Stalin, named after Comrade Stalin himself. The KV-8, named after the previous head of the armaments, which was Clement Voroshilov, something like that. who fell out of favour. And then, of course, the entire heavy armour project came over Stalin himself. And for some reason, he decided to name it after himself. Or possibly someone else decided to.
Killed a machine gun crew.
For good safety's reason.
Machine and Gewehr team is awaiting orders.
A bit too late, though, I think. Not really much for it to blow up anymore. And that was low pioneers.
Suffering losses.
And just going to speed things up a bit.
We are close to defeat.
And there we go, game over. The 2nd Panzer Division took a bit of a brutal beating. Draupner played some interesting early game. It was not the usual aggressive play I'd like to see. It had obviously had a few of its flaws, and Stephenn was able to take advantage of them. But as he kept playing out that tier 1, he brought in more and more and actually forced Stephenn to a standstill and actually forced him back, which is good. Problem was then there were slight problems actually then solidifying his holds. And then of course came the armor rush, which was great, but then he began splitting it up too much, sending that one Panzer force straight into the base of Stephenn, rather wasting, and then things slowly began falling apart. And I certainly didn't feel that Draupner really made the best out of his doctrine. I mean, he really didn't go for the command tank, which probably would have done a great deal for him. Plus, of course, that elephant could also have been handled a bit better in some cases. In particular, that engagement with the veteran T2 HD5 probably was the critical fight, and which was one where probably Draupner then irrevocably put himself beyond victory when, you know, he lost an elephant and only afterwards, you know, rushed in his Panzer IV. A bit of a sign there of poor armour coordination, sadly. Stephenn, on the other hand, played nicely aggressive. I mean, he was, you know, fully perfect several times. He was forced back, but he was able to fight his way back, and of course he mined pretty aggressively, which is quite nice to see. Of course, he also made pretty much good use of his doctrine. I think he used every ability available to him: shock troopers, ambush, incendiary, KV-8s, and the IS-2, which, you know, also tends to be one of the markers of actually a better player, I would say. At least that seems to be my impression so far, having watched and played Company Views 2. I mean, good usage of his buildings. I mean, machine guns, fuel guns, mortars. Good use of his fuel guns. I mean, really one of the things that really helped him stand out. Good usage of them, good preservation, aggressive but not too aggressive either, thus losing them senselessly. Good usage of the mechanized armor company, good usage of the Katyusha to really apply some pressure to his opponent, really getting the hurt on. And also very good aggressive harassment from Stephenn, you know, constantly enveloping, forcing the Draupner to split up, which only made it easier for Stephenn to push out as well. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this match. Hope you learned a thing or two from it. If you did, why not subscribe to your friends? If you didn't, well, why not replay your own? Provide some feedback in the comments. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers.